Hey everybody, let's greet each other properly in here. Good morning, this is Mr. Ainsworth. We are going to get into what's called the general equation of the circle here in geometry, and we're going to go through a few examples in detail, and then you'll have plenty of time afterwards to give it a shot on your own. Remember, this is a video, so if you need to pause and replay, rewind, and do all that sort of thing, be my guest, okay? Because if I go too fast, it's a video. Pause and play, rewind. Use it to your advantage. Get out a pencil and a red pen and take out a compass. All right, compass for drawing your circles here. That would make things a lot easier. So here we go. What we want to do is, given the general equation of a circle here, we want to identify the center, all right, and the radius, and then of course sketch the graph of the circle. So number one, we're going to identify the center and the radius. Number two, we're going to graph, okay, because you can't graph without the center and the radius. But the question is, how do you get it to what's called the standard form? Now let's get out a red pen. So here we go. Standard form of the circle, you already know, we did that in previous lessons here, is x minus h quantity squared plus y minus k quantity squared equals r squared, where the center is at h comma k and the radius is r. This we already know. However, we haven't gone over yet how do you go from the general form, which is this general form, to standard form. All right, and it's called completing the square, something that you went over in Algebra 1 last year. The question is, do you remember it? And then how do you apply it? So that's what I'm here for. I'm going to help you out. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our standard form of the equation, our general form, and we are going to learn how to complete the square. All right, and the very first thing you need to do is group up like terms. All right, so number one, if you're going to write down the steps here, let's put the steps here so we have room right here. We'll do our work down here below the graph, and we'll put the steps right here. So group up like terms. So group like terms. All right, that's easy. All right, so let's take this equation down here, and let's go for it. Now I see an x squared, a minus 8x. All right, and then the other like terms, I see a y squared and a plus 8y. See, I see some like terms right there. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to get this constant that's hanging around here, this plus 28, I'm going to get the right-hand side. So I'm going to subtract 28 as well as group up like terms. So also I'm going to say group up like terms and add the opposite and get the constant on the right. Okay, number two, so step two, get constant on the right-hand side. So get constant, okay, on the right. You'll see why in a minute. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to group up the x squared and the minus 8x. So x squared minus 8x. I'm also going to leave room to complete the square there. So I'm going to go plus, space. I'm going to group up the y's too. I'm going to put that in blue just for funsies here. I've got y squared plus y squared. It's plus, it's being added right there. Plus 8y. So plus 8y. And I'm going to leave room to complete the square right there. Equals what? Well, let me see. I'm going to subtract 28 on both sides. And then now the constant's not on the left side, it's on the right. How about that? All right, you see a negative 28 right there? No problem. It's equal to negative 28. So I got the constant on the right. See that? It's on the right-hand side. All right, now the step is to complete the square and add it to both sides. I'm going to put that in green. All right, I like green. That's my son's favorite color. So complete the square. Complete the square and add it to both sides. Add to both sides. In Algebra 1, you were taught, well, actually, even earlier than Algebra 1, many, many years ago when you first started learning mathematics, or the basic algebraic part of mathematics, you were taught to add the same constant to both sides. Whether it was positive or negative, you add it to both sides. Well, we're going to do the same thing here. The question is, how do you do that? All right. So when you complete the square, I'm going to use the margin space here. When you complete the square, you got to take b, the middle coefficient, divided by 2 and square it. All right, and here's your middle coefficient here, and here's your middle coefficient here. You got to remember that in a general parabola, excuse me, a general quadratic, it's always a x squared plus bx plus c, basic quadratic form. All right, and b happens to be the middle coefficient. Well, here in this case it's -8, and over here it's +8. All right, and what we're going to do is we're going to take it and divide it by 2 and square it, which is easy to do. And so let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to take -8 divided by 2 and square it. Well, that's -4 squared, or 16. So I'm going to add it here. I'm going to complete the square. I just did that. I added to the left, and now add it to the right. All right, now notice that I'm going to highlight that. I added it on both sides. Why? Because you have to. I mean, whatever you do to one side of the equation, you got to balance it on the right-hand side. Well, I got to do that twice because I got to complete the square twice so that I can factor it. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the 8. So 8 divided by 2 and square it. Well, that's 4 divided by 2 is, 8 divided by 2 is 4. 4 squared is 16. Whether you take a -8 and divide it by 2 and square it, or +8 and divide by 2 and square it, you're going to get 16. So I add 16 here, and I add 16 here. So let me see, add 16, add 16, there you go. All right, so now, hang on for a second, what's going on here? Just checking something. Okay, so I've got, what do I have? So, time to factor now. So step 4, it'd be to factor, okay, the quadratics, okay? So what I want to do is I want to factor both of them. So on this one here, I want to factor. I got the factors of x squared go first. All right, x times x is usually x squared, especially tonight at 8:55 p.m., just for you guys. And right now I want two numbers that multiply to 16 that add to -8. Back in the day, you played this this little game. Let's see, let's go over here to the far right. Your teacher said like this: what two numbers multiply to 16 and add to -8? And guess what? They both have to be negative to add to a negative, and they also have to be negative to get to a multiply to a positive. So what two numbers multiply to 16 and add -8? All right, in this case, we know that 4 times 4 is 16, but they both have to add to a -8, and 4 plus 4 is +8, right? That doesn't work. But we do know that a negative plus a negative gives you a bigger negative. And we also know that -4 times -4 is 16. All right, so there we go. So we got a -4 here and a -4 here. And remember back last year that whenever you complete the square, these binomials are always the same. All right? And so what that would do, it would give us x minus 4 squared. And notice how it looks just like standard form of the circle. All right, that's why we're doing this thing, to get from general form to standard form, is we complete the square, factor it, and write it in standard form so we can see the center. Well, we need to do the same thing with the y variable. So here we go. We're going to factor it into two binomials. Y times y is y squared. What two numbers multiply to 16 and add to +8? Well, guess what? 4 times 4 is 16. 4 plus 4 is 8. So this time it's going to be +4 here. And that's going to be plus y plus 4 quantity squared equals whatever this is. Now 16 plus 16 is 32, minus 28, well, that's 4. So the right-hand side is 4. Well, this is your standard form of the circle right here. We know just by looking at this from prior experience, the center is 4, -4. And the radius, let me see, this is equal to r squared here. And since r squared equals 4, that means r is 2. So I have all the information I need right now. Okay, so after you factor, you're good. You got it in standard form. And then after that, step 5, I suppose, is determine center and radius. So determine center, okay, and radius. There we go. So it's a 5-step process, basically. After you factor, you write in standard form, determine center and radius, and you're good to go. And then everything you learned in the prior lesson applies, okay? Now the only thing you need to do is graph this baby. All right, so here we go. We're going to graph. So 4 comma negative 4. So right 4, down 4, you're right here. And then you go radiate out 2. So you go up 2, right 2, down 2, left 2, and you graph the circle. So let's graph the circle. Get your compass out, and here we go. Okay, don't you wish you can do that? All right, and so you got a little radius of 2 right here. Radius of 2, and there's your circle. At 4 comma negative 4, there's your h comma k, and a radius of 2. All right, and that's your information that you need. You always need to know the center and the radius. Okay, let me pause for a second here. Okay, well, let's do this again because, one example is not enough, and it takes a lot of practice to get pretty good at this thing. So let's do a few more. Hopefully you're in your graph paper spiral here doing your thing because graphing is a whole lot easier. But if not, don't worry about it. Just sketch your circles and learn the concept. All right, so here we go. We're going to subtract the constant over here first. Notice that I just subtract 6 on both sides, and I get that. And then I group up my like terms. I see an x squared and a plus 6x as one group, and I see the y squared minus the 2y as the second group. So here we go. We're going to take it down here again. We've got x squared plus 6x. Leave room to complete the square. I've got a plus y squared minus 2y. Leave room to complete the square there. And I've got this minus 6 or a negative 6 on the other side, and then I've got to add the constants on the right hand side too as well. So once again, I have to complete the square for the x's, and then I've got to complete the square for the y's. And whatever I add on the left side, I've got to add on the right hand side. All right, so let's go to work here. We're going to take 6 divided by 2. Again, this is the middle coefficient b, and this is my middle coefficient here. I've got to take 6 divided by 2 and square it, and that gives me 9. And so I have to add 9 to both sides. And then I've got to take a negative 2 and divided by 2 and square it. And that's negative 1 squared, or 1. So I have to add 1 to both sides. See, it's not that hard. You just have to do some basic arithmetic. And then, of course, you got to factor both of them. So the x times x is x squared there. And then what two numbers multiply to 9 and add to 6? Well, that's 3 times 3 is 9, and 3 plus 3 is 6. So plus 3 here, plus 3 here. By the way, this number here, 3, it's always going to be half of the middle coefficient, 6. You can see it over here. Half of negative 8 is negative 4. Half of 8 is 4. This number here that's inside the binomial, the h or the k, is always half the middle coefficient. And if you remember that from last year, you'd be good to go. And also, these binomials are always the same. On the second one here, y times y is y squared. And what two numbers multiply to 1 and add to negative 2? Well, negative 1 times negative 1 is 1, and negative 1 plus negative 1 is negative 2. So we're going to go y minus 1 times quantity y minus 1. 10 minus 6 is 4, so it's equal to 4. So I write it in standard form. And then I determine the center, which is h comma k. So h, k. Now x minus a negative 3 would be x plus 3. So this is going to be negative 3 comma 1 here. This is r squared. Since r squared equals 4, that means r equals 2. So I know my center, I know my radius. So I graph the center at left 3 down up 1. That's the center. And then I radiate out 2. That means I go up 2, right 2, down 2, and then left 2, and then I graph, get your compass out obviously, and graph your circle. And there we go. And that's a radius of 2 right there. You can see it. And that's all there is to it. It's not that bad. All right, but once more, sometimes it takes, 5, 6, 7 examples to get really good. So let's do it again. All right, if you want to at this point, you can pause and play if you like. If you think you know what you're doing, pause the video and then get to work and then check it with me. So you can use a pause and play feature and not just sit there and take notes. You can get involved. Okay, so if you like, pause the video right now and go for it. All right, time to check your work. I see x squared minus 8x as my first group. I see y squared plus 4y as my second group. I'm going to subtract 19 on both sides to cancel out the constant and get it on the right. So I've got x squared minus 8x plus something plus y squared plus 4y plus something is equal to negative 9 plus something plus something. All right, once more, I've got to complete the square here and add it to both sides. Then I've got to complete the square here on the y's and add it to both sides. Okay, so a negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4 squared is 16. So I'm going to add 16 to both sides. 4 divided by 2 is 2 squared is 4. So I'm going to add 4 here and to both sides. And now I factor. So I've got, put my binomials in. I always factor into two binomials. 20 minus 19 is 1, so that's 1 here on the right-hand side when you simplify it. When you factor, x times x is x squared. And what two numbers multiply to 16 and add to negative 8? Well, you've already seen this. It's a negative 4 times negative 4 is 16, and they add to negative 8. Y times y is y squared. And what two numbers multiply to 4 and add to 4? Well, they have to be 2 and 2, right? 2 times 2 is 4, and 2 plus 2 is 4. Easy. Rewrite in standard form. And here, rewrite this in standard form. Identify your h and k, which gives you your center. So it's going to be 4 comma negative 2, because y minus a negative 2 is y plus 2. Since r squared equals 1, well, the radius is 1. Okay, so at this point, you want to go right 4, down 2, graph your center, and then radiate out 1. So up 1, down, right 1, down 1, left 1, and then get your compass or sketch. This one's so small, you just might want to sketch it. All right, graph your little circle. There you go, radius 1. Then that's all there is to it, my friends. Piece of cake. All right. All right, so now let's try this one. All right, so we got to group up. Again, pause and play now. So if you haven't done number 4 yet, pause it right now and go for it, and then check it with me afterwards. And be interactive with this. All right, make it more fun, more challenging. All right, give it a shot. All right, let's check your work. I see the first group is x squared minus 6x. My second group is a plus y squared minus 8y. I'm going to subtract 16 on both sides. And I'm going to go for it. X squared minus 6x plus something plus y squared minus 8y plus something is equal to a negative 16 plus something plus something. One more time, I've got to complete the square and add it to both sides. For the x's, I've got to complete the square and add it to both sides for the y's. And then I can factor it after that. So on this one, I've got a negative 6 divided by 2 squared, and that's negative 3 squared, or 9. So I've got to add that to both sides. On the negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4 squared is 16. So I've got to add 16 to both sides. Let me see, 16 plus a negative 16 cancels out, and I get the 9 on the right-hand side. And then I factor a little bit. X times x is x squared. And what two numbers multiply to 9 and add to negative 6? Well, try negative 3 and negative 3. They multiply to 9 and they add to negative 6. So you're going to factor it. And then on this one here, you've got what two numbers multiply to 16 and add to negative 8? Try negative 4 and negative 4. So you have y times y is y squared, and then use the minus 4s. Okay, write in standard form, x minus 3 quantity squared plus y minus 4 quantity squared is equal to 9. And write down your center, which is your h and k, so 3 comma 4 in this case. And since r squared is equal to 9, well, that means that r equals 3. So you're going to graph the center at 3 comma 4, which is right here. Write 3 up 4, and then you're going to radiate out 9. So right 3, down 3, left 3, up 3. Okay, like spokes of a wheel, just go in all directions. Take your compass out or start sketching. All right, and then graph your circle. And there you go. It's that simple, my friends. All you have to do is give it your best and try it. Okay? All right, we'll do it a few more times here, so go ahead and pause the video. And go ahead and get started on this one here. Okay, give it your best shot. Pause and go for it. All right, time to check your work. So we group up like terms, as we always do. Subtract 14 on both sides. Get that in the proper form. Get it grouped up. So x squared plus 6x plus something plus y squared minus 6y plus something is equal to negative 14 plus something plus something. All right, and then we need to start completing the square here. So 6 divided by 2 is 3, squared is 9. So I add that to 9 on both sides, here and here. And then, of course, whatever I complete the square on the y, I've got to add that to both sides. So I take my negative 6 now, divide that by 2 and square it, and I get 9 again. So I'm going to add 9 here and here. So factor into binomials, as we've done in every single example. Let me see, oops, scratch that. 18 minus 14 is 4. I always add the positive numbers first and then subtract whatever's negative. It's easier that way for me. So again, this is 18. 18 minus 14 is 4, obviously. All right, x times x is x squared. What two numbers multiply to 9 and add to 6? Well, how about 3 and 3? 3 times 3 is 9, but 3 plus 3 is 6. So plus 3 plus 3. It's always half of this middle coefficient, by the way. Divide that by 2. We'll do the same thing here. Y times y is y squared. I know it's going to be a minus 3 because it's half of that, but you can think of it this way. What two numbers multiply to 9 and add to negative 6? Well, they've got to be negative 3 and negative 3. Okay, write in standard form. Okay, write down your center. Since r squared is equal to 4, my radius is 2, so I graph the center at left 3, up 3. And then I radiate out 2, so I go up 2, right 2, down 2, left 2. Get out your compass and go for it. There you go. There's your circle. Radius of 2. Okay, you can see it right there. And that's all there is to it, my friends. Okay, pause the video. Give number 6 a shot. All right, let's check work here. So let's group up, show the groupings, and also at the same time, let's subtract 1 and get it on the right-hand side. And so we've got x squared plus 2x here, plus 2x plus something, plus y squared minus 6y plus something is equal to negative 1 plus something plus something. I've got to complete the square for the x's and add it to both sides, and then I've got to complete the square for the y's and add it to both sides. All right, so here we go. 2 divided by 2 is 1, squared is 1, so I add 1 to both sides. Negative 6, I take negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3, squared is 9, so I've got to add 9 to both sides. Then I factor. And the right-hand side is obviously 9 because -1 plus 1 cancels out. The right-hand side is 9. When I factor the x squared, I get x times x is x squared. And then what two numbers multiply to 1 and add to 2? Well, how about 1 times 1? So plus 1 plus 1. And what two numbers multiply to 9 and add to -6? Try -3 and -3. So you have y minus 3 times y minus 3. You get the standard form. You see a lot of repetition now after the 6th example. All right, I'm saying the same thing every single time. This is the 6th time I've said everything. So hopefully it becomes a little bit familiar to you now. X minus a -1 is x plus 1, so the center is at -1 comma 3, and since r squared equals 9, all right, radius is equal to 3. So you go left 1 up 3, plot your radius, plot your center, and then use the radius, go up 3, right 3, down 3, left 3, and then go ahead and take your compass out again. Ooh, and draw your circle, or sketch it, one of the two. All right, and again, take a look at it, radius 3 here. All right, almost done here. Let's try 2 more, and then we'll be done. All right, just to give you plenty of experience. Pause the video and try number 7. All right, let's check work. All right, we're going to group up x squared and 2x. We're going to group up the y squared and the 6y. Oh, you know what? Hang on for a second here. Plus, oh, this one's a little bit different. Okay, I thought they were the same for some reason. Okay, they're different. All right, so let's practice. Okay, let's subtract 1. I was going to change it if it was different, but they are different. Or excuse me, I was going to change it if it was the same, but they're not. Okay, so let's go for it here. We got x squared plus 2x plus something plus y squared plus 6y plus something equals -1 plus something plus something. All right, I've got to complete the square for the x's, and then I've got to complete the square for the y's, add them to both sides, and then go for it. Okay, 2 divided by 2 is 1, 1 squared is 1, so add 1 to both sides. 6 divided by 2 is 3, squared is 9, so add 9 to both sides. Factor, okay, and I get x plus 1 quantity squared plus y plus 3 quantity squared is equal to 9. So my center is at -1, -3. It's different this time. And my radius, since r squared equals 9, my radius is 3. So I go left 1, down 3 this time, and now my radius is 3, so I go right 3, up 3, left 3, down 3, and graph. Okay, so it's slightly different than the last one because the coefficients were different. Okay, so be careful and do the right thing. Okay, I got a radius of 3 right here. All right, pause the video, last one. Okay, go for it. All right, last one, here we go. Let's group. All right, let's also subtract 9 to get it on the right-hand side. All right, and let's go for it. X squared plus 6x plus something plus y squared plus 4y plus something is equal to -9 plus something plus something. We're going to complete the squares for the x's first, complete the squares for the y's next. All right, 6 divided by 2 is 3, squared is 9, so I add 9 first. 4 divided by 2 is 2, squared is 4, so I add 4 to both sides. Factor, it's half of this all the time. It's half of 4. These cancel out. I get 4 here, so my center is at -3 comma -2, and r is 2. It's a square root of 4 here. So I go left 3, down 2, radiate out 2, all directions. All right, and graph, and then I'm done. Once you get pretty good at this, it's a quick process. It's intimidating in the beginning, but after that, it's not too bad. All right, radius of 2. All right, and that's all there is to it. So what you guys need to do is practice. All right, there's 8 examples. And now what you need to do is your homework attached. All right, so if you need to watch this at home and review any portion of it, it's there for you. It's on my website. All right, review any portion you like and go at your own pace and work hard on your homework. Come to class proud the next day, and I'll answer any questions you may have, and I'll see you then. This is Mr. Ainsworth signing off. I'll see you guys later.